Welcome back, everyone. Recently, I have been receiving multiple questions in multiple forms on multiple platforms about uranium, what's going on in markets right now, and what I'm thinking about it. And so that's what this video is going to be about. A few points about uranium need to be made and where we are. So let's start with the big question that's on everyone's mind. What's terribly wrong in the universe? The price of uranium is going up. That can't be right. Why? Well, as most of you probably know or heard to some extent, Kazakhstan announced a cut of up to 4,000 tons of uranium. That amounts to 10.4 million pounds from their production this year. Now, a number of people are suggesting um, that it's 10.4 million pounds or potentially more. Now, personally, for now, I'm working on the assumption that it's actually might only be 5 million pounds. Now, why is that? Well, 10 million pounds would be extremely bearish and bullish, extremely bullish, and 5 million pounds is quite bullish as well. But the news release said up to 4,000 tons. And so I'm looking at a number of factors, and I don't really want to price in the full amount yet, just based on the model that I am using. Again, I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm not saying we'll definitely get less or more, or that it will really matter in the short term, because I'll see if I'm right before it matters. So, but for now, that's big news. It's big news. It's a lot of supply that was assumed to be there and it doesn't look like it's going to be there. Now, again, I alluded to this in a prior video that if Kazakhstan were to shut down at all, and I'll be honest, I thought there was a chance of some disruptions there. I was not expecting a full shutdown, and so I was very, well, it was very bullish to see it, and I suggested in a prior video that that would be the really bullish news that could come out of this. So after Cigar Lake in Canada, Namibia, and then Kazakhstan all shut down, well, frankly, all of their production for limited amounts of time, will we see more shutdowns? Well, that's a very good question. I wish I knew. For now, the one that is on most people's minds is Olympic Dam, and that would be, again, another huge shoe to drop if it were to shut down. I don't think it will, and I'll get into why in a second, but it would be huge because that is the source of a lot of spot material. I don't think it will shut down because I think Australia has done a good job with regards to flattening the curve. And so if you look at the pace of new infections in Australia, I would be skeptical to think that there would be more measures taken there. So again, we'll see. But I'm looking at the numbers, I'm not counting on any cuts out of Australia. And the rest of the uranium world that is still open for business, which realistically, if you look at it, not that much relative to what the annual supply, it's really not that much that's left open. But none of the countries that are open right now strike me as definitely contained. So they're still kind of up in the air. So we'll have to see if they decide to shut down or not, or how they handle the virus, because again, every country is doing things differently and is having varying degrees of success or not. Now, checking up on the areas that have shut down production to see how they're progressing. The first thing to look at is Cigar Lake in Saskatchewan, which has been down for 3 weeks already. Wow, it feels like yesterday. I know, it's hard to believe. Since they announced the 4-week shutdown, it's been 3 weeks, and So I'm looking specifically at Saskatchewan because looking at Canada, well, that's really not that useful because, for example, the distance between the bulk of the infections in Canada and Saskatchewan is, well, it's more than the distance from London to Moscow, for example. So we have to look at more regional Saskatchewan. Before today, I would have thought that the 4 week time frame might be more or less likely because yesterday there was 4 new cases, the day before that 7, day before that 7, I think, and the day before that 11. So it looked very good and very contained in Saskatchewan, and we'll hope that it still is. Unfortunately, today there was it 9 cases? I think it was. Anyway, an uptick in cases. So it's still up in the air whether they will see 4 weeks or more. Um, we'll see. Namibia, this was surprising to me. Not because they shut down. I think that there were some cases where they could, um, the argument could be made, but they only have, even today, only have 16 cases total. And they shut down a while ago, which, given the case count to the action taken, seems surprising to me. Maybe not to other people, but seemed a bit surprising to me. Now, Husab, I saw something recently that was talking about the Husab mine that was having production issues because of water. So they weren't producing up to their nameplate. And to the people who have been around uranium a long time and who have watched the development of the Husab mine, I don't think anyone is surprised that Husab is having a few issues reaching nameplate capacity. But again, that doesn't matter mostly. I'm of the opinion that whatever most of the stuff that happens with regards to Namibian production or Chinese owned production doesn't matter because it's kind of off a different system anyway. So there's that, which brings us to Kazakhstan. Now, again, Kazakhstan, the progression of the case count in Kazakhstan is different from many other places in that it looked like they had caught it early enough, but now I'm again less sure. So that's something to watch. It's something very, very, very relevant with regards to how quickly they can get that contained to get the country back up and running. So that's something to keep the closest watch on. But again, for now, like I said before, I am not assuming the full impact yet, but it could easily be that, could easily be more. So we'll just have to watch and see. Another thing I wanted to address is that I saw an article, I believe it was in Forbes, about claiming that the uranium bull market that had just started was due to short-term, I'm paraphrasing here, but it looked like they were saying that uranium has demand declining and that it's only up because in the near term was more disruption to supply than disruption to demand. And the one thing I wanted to say about that is that if that is what people believe is happening right now, that is a completely different thesis from what I believe is happening. And one of the two thesis owners needs to do some more research, probably both, to see what's actually going on, because I don't think that it's a near-term thing. Now, it is affecting people's willingness to sell, maybe, but it's very different from that, in my opinion. To illustrate the point of what I think is happening in abstract chart form, graph form, I guess, here is what I believe is happening. Before what before the shutdowns, before the impacts, we were waiting for inventory to drain out. We were waiting for inventory to be burned and more contracts to be needed. So the inventory was draining at a particular rate. Now, after Cigar and uh, Husab and Rossing shut down, that basically cut some more production from this year. And if they're shut down for a set amount, that basically lowers our point on the y-axis, but keeps the rate of decline. I mean, if assuming they come back. And then after Kazakhstan, well, that's more pounds that are reduced. And so we're getting from waiting for when the price, when the excess supply inventory ran out, which could have been maybe later this year, maybe early next year, some point. You could debate with different people. Different people give you different answers. So we're waiting for that point. With a few more cuts, it brings it forward, and with more cuts, it brings it forward. And again, the longer the supply is out, the sooner it happens. There's another point I wanted to address. Cameco also, a few weeks after they shut down Cigar, shut down a conversion facility in Ontario, Port Hope. And so I just want to point out that some people were insinuating or thinking or saying that the shutdown of the conversion facility is bullish because it removes supply, which is, it does remove supply, but it's not the same supply. Basically, the way the fuel cycle mechanics work, it's not removing U3O8 supply, it's removing the conversion from U3O8 to UF6, and so that makes certain aspects of the fuel cycle more expensive. Now, uh, it's not bullish. Now, that being said, because it's Cameco and because it's temporary, very temporary action, I don't think it's bearish. I'm just saying it's neutral. It's not bullish. I don't think we'll see negative consequences because, again, Cameco would be in charge of, well, basically the change in the process. So Cameco, well, they need their U3O8 more than, well, almost more than anyone else. The next thing I wanted to address briefly here, because it's probably the topic for another video at length, is the general market. Now, we saw an event or a brief period of time or a few weeks or whatever, where I'd call it a correlation one event. People were selling everything. And so if that type of correlation one crash continues, uranium stocks may be hit with the market. It's not impossible. But if we're talking fundamentally, does a recession hurt uranium demand? A little bit. But I mean, if you understand sunk costs and the, well, mechanics of the energy market, you probably would know that it doesn't hurt it much. I mean, we could debate this if you want, but the the marginal cost of uranium for running a fuel plant is not even close to anything else, so it won't hurt it that much. And if you're wondering if the prolonged shutdown, which by the way, I think is one of the more, um, along with prolonged shutdown, people not getting back to life quickly after would be the biggest case for a continued market decline, along with a liquidity crisis. But anyway, if you think that the people not getting back to work for a protracted period of time would be bearish for uranium, that would be contingent on, well, if the miners are able to get back to work. So again, it's more complicated than that. But what I wanted to say is the stocks will do what the stocks will do, but the fundamentals for uranium are not exactly connected to the market. And I've said this many times in the past, and I've said this a year ago when people were talking about recession then, and it looks Well, I mean, just look at what the uranium price has done recently. In continuation with the theme of my previous video on the shutdown of Cigar Lake, where I said, are we there yet? Are we there? Fundamentally, if we're not there, we've got to be pretty close. And again, there's tons and tons of different decisions that go into this, and within a margin of error, I would say we're pretty close. I don't know who's selling at this point. Like with this news, with all this uncertainty, there's some uranium that needs to be transacted, and in order for us to get to the point where I would say, because I mean, realistically, I would think that we're maybe a little bit away, but because we've kind of been shocked into where we are now, I'm not sure how much uranium is actually, how many people are willing to sell uranium given that it may be revalued higher with this move. So part of why I think we're close enough that it may actually be there is the psychology of, okay, well, who is selling uranium now? Because the supply is out, so the people that are holding it should know that it's worth more than it was a month ago. So there's that. Now, it is completely possible, and I need to point this out. It's completely possible that someone can dig themselves into a deeper hole um, by, and in turn, make it so that the market doesn't move now. For example, let's say you came to me and I'm like, oh, I'll contract you 10 million pounds of uranium. And you're like, okay, I'll buy 10 million pounds of uranium for you. Okay, but we'll deliver, 2 years. Okay, deal. Okay, so you think you have your uranium, so you're not in a rush to buy. Now I have to get the uranium. So in that way, the demand could be kicked further down the road, and I could be assuming, yeah, I'll be able to get the uranium, no problem, except when I eventually go to get it. But the point is, people could put themselves offside a little bit more to make this take longer. But we're we're I think we're pretty close. Now, I do think it's worth remembering that we are in a bit of a crazy situation with regards to the production and who needs uranium for whom within the market. Urano, for example, this is part one of the craziness, they borrowed pounds. So they need to get pounds back so that they could get them, so they could pay back Cameco. Cameco also needs to find pounds from not only Urano, but from the rest of the market to the tune of 10%. And I'll get to why that's crazy in a second too. But they need about 10% of the market so that, and they need to buy that so they could deliver that into their contracts. Urano, by the way, is one of their mines is Cominac, which has less than year's life left in it. And there's also Ranger, which is not an Urano mine, but that also has less than a year life left. So, in 2021, those are two mines, two decent sized mines that are done. As far as why is it crazy that Cameco needs 10% of supply? 10% of supply. That's, I mean, you know, you'd think it was crazy if a gold producer was like, yeah, we need to buy 330 metric tons of gold to deliver to our producers. You'd be like, excuse me? Or if a copper producer said, yeah, we need 2.8 million tons of copper and we need to get it and we don't think the price is going anywhere for the next 2 years, you'd look at them like they were crazy. And well, that's just where we are right now in uranium, and everyone seems to think that everything is fine, and it is until, you know, it isn't. So what have I done recently in the uranium world? Well, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, Friday, after we saw the shutdown of Namibia, I saw that the uranium price hadn't, it was ticking up, and UPC was trading like uranium was 21 bucks still. So I added a bit there. I figured I'm getting it at a $6 discount heading into the weekend. We might see some disruption from Kazatomprom. We didn't that weekend. Um, but still, it was just $6 discount, big discount. So it kind of removed some of the risk. I missed the bottom by a bit. I don't know if that was the bottom, but I'm just saying I bought when it was off of the lows. So I bought a little bit of that there. I tweeted about that basically the day of. And then after the Kazakhstan announcement, I started deploying I think, some of my more risk, more levered cash into some positions. Not levered cash, but I deployed some of my cash into some positions that I was saving the money for when I thought something happened and we might be close now. So I started putting some of that money to work. Yeah. So I just wanted to conclude this video with the normal reminder and a bit of an allegorical tale. So when I say that this is not investment advice and you should do your own research and have your own view, I mean it. Because not only should you not listen to a random person on YouTube, but you also shouldn't listen to a random person on Twitter. I say this, you also should question CEOs, question what they're saying also, because I'm seeing a lot, and it's understandable, there's a lot of excitement around now, but I'm seeing on Twitter there's a number of people that are talking about how cheap certain projects are. Some of them maybe you can agree with, some of them maybe you can't. Some of them are probably going to be good, some of them are probably not going to be good. And, that's not to say that the stock will do well or won't do well, because some great projects will be poorly managed. And I've seen some CEOs as well that are claiming some things that sometimes you might want to think that they should, again, not pointing at anyone specifically, but when the CEO starts strawmanning the bear case and saying that everyone else is short, there's been a lot of money that has been wasted in the sector, and there's a lot of houses that need to be put in order before claiming that someone else is trying to run over yours. But anyway, I'm not talking about anyone specifically. This is just kind of a thing that you kind of see around. Just do your own research and think about it. Think about what the stocks are. And with that, thank you and thanks for watching. Have a great day.